This is Foundry Files, episode 13. I am Captain James T. Admiral Murphy. And over there...
Don't intro like that. Just don't... I'm weary.
Over there.
Don't
that's
intro
wee-wee.
like that ever again, Murphy.
Why not? See, you're supposed to do the whole Spock. It's logical to introduce it. Come on, man. Yeah, there we go. Eyebrow thing. Anyway, hello. Welcome to Foundry Files. This is the Foundry podcast where we cover stuff involving the Foundry. What is the Foundry? If you don't know, it's this thing in Star Trek Online and soon to be Neverwinter that makes missions. So if you like authoring stuff, if you're a fan fiction writer, heck, if you just like, I don't know what else you'd like that makes you love the Foundry, but if you do, you can always tell us comments and stuff. But anyway, we cover the Foundry, so why don't we say what we're covering this week? So wee-wee, what are we covering this week? What's going on?
Well, we've got a mini spotlight in the news and a couple of other things. We're going over technique in quick tips this week. Still part of the tech section. We are reviewing For Every Action Part 2, which didn't happen last week.
No, the recording got bugged, so we have to reshoot it. So it'll be this week, though, so we're sorry for that.
all of this technical stuff, so you can blame him.
I think the wee-wee virus has transferred to my computer since our first couple of Skype calls, because ever since episode, 8 or 9, I've had at least one technical difficulty that's made it hard to get this show out. So I'm officially going to throw this on wee-wee's shoulders and say, thanks a lot, wee-wee, for creating the wee-wee virus. Even though I know you don't control it anymore. But anyway, what else are we doing?
We are going over a Foundry discussion later on, which will concern a little matter I think we covered last week a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. We were talking about covering it this week, so we're going to do it. Which is the searching for missions in game issue, which has led to exploits. So I guess the new exploit issue. So they're no longer console cookies, they're more like grinders.
Quickies.
Yeah, more like grinders. I guess they're still quickies, but they're not for to complete your daily. It's kind of a workaround. We'll talk about it in that discussion segment, and we'll give you more information on that. But hey, let's go right into news. Hey, wee wee.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about this? The temporal lockbox. It's going away. Pretty interesting news there.
What? Okay. And our spotlight for this week: Vulture Wheel by Darren Kettler. Against the backdrop of a gone revolution, a lithium doctor stands accused of murder on a corrupt Klingon border world. Exonerate her and bring order to the region.
And this week on Quick Tips, we cover technique. So, know the Foundry tool and what it can do. Take the time to test out different features within the Foundry. Maybe just play around. If you're working on your first mission, maybe just play around with the different items, test it out, and see how it works before you actually publish your first story mission. It's also good to watch video tutorials and read up on guides on how some of the stuff in the Foundry works, because some of the stuff in the Foundry can get very complicated, and it helps when you talk with somebody or watch a video somebody has produced who knows what they're doing. Avoiding technical problems is a great way to show off your knowledge of the Foundry, especially to other Foundry authors. When a Foundry author sees technical problems in your mission, they kind of look down on your ability as a Foundry author there. Using workarounds to avoid Foundry limitations is another great way to show off your technical skill within the Foundry tool. And using triggers and art assets is an ingenious way to create something new, or also avoid map transitions. So there's some quick tips there for you on technique this week. We'll catch you next week.
And onto For Every Action Part 2. We'll be reviewing Part 3 of the series next week. But I'll just give you little intro bits before we start. As of this recording, it has 57 players and an average star rating of 3.81. And when we tried reviewing it last week, before Murphy decided to screw us over with his technical difficulties, it was 55 players and 3.8, so not exactly that many more players and much of a star increase. So a few more reviews and plays through this mission would be very nice, I'd say.
So, Wheelie, what part was this?
2.
2?
Didn't-
Okay, just
yeah.
checking. I had to make sure. He doesn't know what was going on, folks, but whatever. Anyway, this week on Story, the story continues as Section 31 is trying to hunt you down and kill you to cover up all the evidence of what has really gone on here at Tellar. Can you elude them and find the person responsible for the outbreak of this terrible disease on the planet? So the plot, again, is excellent, and the mystery continues to thicken, and you become interested in what is really going on here. So again, the characters are good, and some are expanded upon in this mission, but still, I'm not drawn into them still as much. I mean, a few are expanded upon, like 1 or 2, but other than that, the only character I'm truly interested in is the Cardassian scientist. And I think it's only because, okay, so in the original episode, in the Pale Moonlight, which I want to talk a little bit more again, once we get into the Touchstone section, but in that episode, we heard about the guy who had the isolinear rod that Garrick gets. But we never got to see him in the show, so we were left questioning what he actually looked like. For whatever reason, in the mission, he's a Cardi. But for whatever reason, when I pictured him, I didn't picture him as a Cardi. I pictured him as some, like, other alien race. But it makes complete sense that he's a Cardassian because he has an isolinear rod. What did you picture him as, Wee Wee, in the episode? Did you actually think he was a Cardassian, or did you just not care?
I didn't care, but once I saw it was a Cardassian, it made complete sense to me. Not just for the rod, the fact that it's DS9, it's Cardassian.
Yep.
It goes hand in hand. It makes complete sense, really.
I don't know why. I just pictured he'd be some alien scientist guy of a race we never met before. That's just what crosses my mind when it comes to these mysterious aliens. But anyway, onto the dialogue. Yes, excellent. I gave it a 10, I believe. This was brilliantly written. It keeps you... even though the characters aren't memorable in a way, they each speak differently, so already that's a plus side to give them their own unique feel. And having that, when you're reading through tons and tons of dialogue, is really good, because you want your dialogue really well written when you have pages and pages of it. Now, it's not ridiculous page length, but it's more than your standard mission you'd play, even from Cryptic. There's more reading to this, and because it's so well written, it's good reading. You're going to be drawn in, and because of the mystery feel to this mission, it's just going to keep you in, and you just want to keep reading and reading to figure out what is going on in this mission, continuing from the Part 1 mystery.
Yeah, I'll touch on this replayability a bit later, but this is Part 2 also doesn't have any branching dialogue. But in this mission, the dialogue more than makes up for at least most of it, significantly more from Part 1, because the dialogue it's just much more intense. It revolves around the plot and the story a lot more. It's just better, very significantly
and your
better.
captain gets to speak again, which is a great plus side. You're actually, and there's a part where you're at the brig, and there's a guy in the brig who's kind of like, you better let me out here, blah blah blah, and you just totally own him, and you're like, yeah, my captain's being a boss. That's cool.
You
now
just go out the door as if nothing happened.
Yeah. Now again, because there's no branching dialogue, you're forced to say one thing as your captain, and I could see that being a problem for some captains, depending on their race or background and stuff like that. I didn't encounter any problems with that. I felt my captain was making choices and actions he would normally make, but I could see for other captains that being an issue.
Yeah.
Now, touchstoning and canon usage scored through the roof because it is touchstoning on the episode in the Pale Moonlight and continuing from there, because this whole situation started because of this scientist getting the biomimetic gel from Cisco.
It's the entire reason that this actual story arc is what it's named.
Yeah.
Every action.
If Cisco didn't make that one choice, this mission wouldn't be happening. And it's kind of the darker feel to the choices Cisco made, because when we look at it without this series, we see, oh, what Cisco did was necessary. It was needed in order to bring the Romulans into the war. But now we're kind of seeing the dark after effect of what's going on in this series, and you will have to try to stop what's going on here. And no grammar and spelling issues on this mission. One spelling issue I have marked down here, but again, it's just one, not a major one. Story scored a 9.14. Hey, look at that. First place in story. That is definitely saying something.
0.04 higher, I think, was it Ramek Nor?
Yeah, it's pretty close, but it made first.
Story score, yeah. A little bit higher, but it just goes to show you that the story is very significantly
huge,
orientated in this mission.
So if you're a story fan,
I'll actually draw a comparison a bit later on, but yeah.
But Alright, on to the technical side now. Let's see how that scored, because story, through the roof. Let's see how these other categories did. So moving on to technical, the maps were good. They were more consistent as you played through the mission compared to last time, because last time we had a lot of pre-made maps and then some really gorgeous ones. They were more consistent through this mission because a lot of them were pre-made maps. A few of them were customized to look completely new. Really liked that. I didn't as much like the consistency because, again, most of them look like pre-made maps. But there are like a few advanced ones, like the med bay was pretty cool to see. I did like that. There's another interior. It was really the interiors of your ship you had to build. Those were quite nice to see. But anytime you were off your ship or in space, nothing really special there. Would have liked to see some stuff.
That tends to be the case normally because space is called space for a reason. And in the interiors of ships and all that kind of stuff in stations, authors have a lot more freedom to put things in. Like, is there an exploded bulkhead there? Is there a hole in the ship? That kind of stuff. So it's a lot more freedom to put it in there, ironically, compared to space. Whereas in space, there's literally nothing around.
Yep.
And it's actually unrealistic for to be an asteroid or a planet in every single map that you go to.
So then the transitions in this mission were also quite frequent. I did notice I was hitting quite a few transitions throughout the mission with tons of maps, which can get a little tiresome if you get long loading screens, which happens quite frequently when you play a Foundry mission. And another problem I noticed was the first map is completely useless. And when you have that, that's really bad, especially right off the bat. So what happens is you go to your ready room where you're at the end of part 1. And there's like 3 dialogue boxes that you could honestly read in space, and then you go into space.
And the moves, you go into space, continue with the mission. Yeah, there's another case of that later in the mission where you're going away from the planet, and you go to a reach marker, a bunch of stuff happens, and then you go again. I mean, it's like, okay, I went 10 kilometers forward, and then I went to the next map. What was the point? So it's
a little bit better than just dialogue boxes, but still, yeah. Some players will get that feel like, why was I here?
I talked about this last week on our tips, and transitions, it really suffers from the kind of points that I pointed out then, so...
So the author does show great knowledge of the Foundry through the construction of the mission and some of these maps. Also really great trigger use. There was some pretty good trigger usage in this mission. Brilliant art asset usage, though, when constructing the sets that are inside your ship. Those were really nice to see. Multiple wow moments because of the cool maps and transitions and stuff like that. The instructions, again, pretty much what we said the week before when we reviewed part 1. They really need some more work, especially on this one. And there's also a problem where the author has the nebula static effect comes on, which of course clears out your mini-map. You can't use it. And the problem is you kind of need your mini-map to see where you're going, because there's like a waypoint you need to reach. So if you didn't turn too much, you just have to go forward and hit the place. But I know, like Wee, you said you might have lost it if your mini-map wasn't activated for like 2 seconds.
Literally the instant the mini-map came up, for those like less than a second, I actually see the map. I saw which direction I was facing and where the reach marker was. So I was able to gather the data I needed to go in which direction. The problem with this is the fact that people might not be as quick as me. Nope. It's like, okay, they see where the reach marker is, but which direction do I go? Where is it? And all that kind of stuff. So there's no point in having a reach marker if people can't see the minimap. So it's kind of a thing that needs addressing in that issue. And there tend to be the workaround for that sort of thing. Usually is some kind of like a blinking icon effect that you could see in the distance. There's a great big noise, deafening noise if you have it sound too loud sometimes as well. So having that to compensate for the nebula static effect is a great idea, because it'll give people knowledge where to go and not just give the mission 1 star and say I have no idea where to go on this map and then just go and bam into space. So.
And there were no Foundry limitations in this mission, so it ranks up in technical at 7.22, tied 16th place with Brains Before Bounty, which was one we didn't review too long ago. So pretty good technical score. What
is that, like the 3rd mission in the Roll Murphy? We've had like a tie.
Guess what? Game Master Wooey's about to cover another tie, so
yeah, I'll get into that.
So why don't we listen to what he has to say? Go right ahead, Wee. What is gameplay? What do we have to say about it this week?
Well, overall it was pretty mediocre, really. I'll start breaking it down. We've got space gameplay, but that was pretty weak, unfortunately. I mean, in the first part, it was simply go here, do that, move there, do that, and unlike part 1, part 2, there was really no logical course of action in space. Because I mean, last week, or at least the week before, we manage to get through the mission and do certain things in order. It's like go here, do that, and move here. But it was in a very logical course of action. In this, it's transition, do this, transition, do that kind of thing. So it's like, there's just no flow to it. There really is no flow to the space gameplay at all in this mission. It's improvements I highly recommend for this part of the mission. I mean, really highly recommended. It can get frustrating sometimes, not only with the maps, but with this part of the gameplay. There was a bit of combat to try and make up for it. Multi-stack groups are present, but there are only 2 space groups, which is kind of limiting in this portion of the mission. It's interesting combat what there was, but it was generally limited, so...
And it's cool, because you're taking on Section 31 ships, so it's different. I don't know how I feel about Section 31 having ships, because I think about, like, would they have this huge armada? I guess so, because, I mean, we looked at the Tal Shiar and the Obsidian Order. I mean, especially with the Obsidian Order, they weren't supposed to have ships, and yet they were building this massive fleet during Deep Space Nine, so I could see it possible. But what else do you have to say here on anything else in space gameplay or combat?
Well, combat could have made up for this mission. It made up for it a bit, but if the author hasn't really intended for gameplay to be that, well, good, combat could be used as an increase. There are a lot of occasions in this mission where space combat is probably a good idea. In some cases, like transition the map, but you're not just going to one reach marker all the time or something like that. But there is a bit of ground as well. You're not just limited to space all the time, so don't worry about that. Ground gameplay was functional, a bit better than space. There's a lot more movement throughout the ground portions. There's a lot more flowing than space, but very little to do besides talk to NPCs. It's really not much beyond the point. I mean, there's hardly reach markers or interaction with anything. So, again, the relation between gameplay and combat is, again, a bit of an iffy subject for ground as well. I mean, ground combat, there's only like a mob or 2 throughout the mission, and this part of the mission is not very developed at all. So it's like, gameplay and combat, balance it out or kind of a lot is my suggestion there for the author. And as I talked about before, replayability, questionable for part 1, but more like a branching diagonal in this mission. But in this mission, it makes up for it significantly than part 1 does because of the dialogue, which I mentioned earlier. So you don't really need to worry about that branching dialogue as much in this mission. And another reason to replay the mission is because it really developed a story and plot line more significantly than part 1, because part 1 is basically an introductory mission. This is a continuation. This gets you set up for part 3. So you want to replay this much more than part 1, because part 2 of, well, most of any 3-part trilogies generally tend to do a lot better, because it's just a continuation. It continues and then it leaves off on a cliffhanger.
Back to the Future. Loved that part too. Loved it.
It's Lord of the Rings if you watched The Hobbit recently as well. Yeah. But like we mentioned, another tie. But it's a little bit lower down. It's a 5.72, which is tied 25th with General Rebellion. So not only do we have 3 missions in a row we reviewed with ties, in this mission we have 2.
Yep, 2 ties.
What are the odds of that? I'm betting 4. I'm betting 4 for next week.
Yeah, we'll have one definitely next week, I bet. But just to mention gameplay, because it doesn't score greatly here. In fact, it's kind of But if you look at it just from purely gameplay perspective, for those people who just want to go in and shoot stuff, this isn't gonna be the mission for you at all, and that's why gameplay received this low score. But for story fans like me, I'm more focused on like the story score for this mission, and the gameplay as much doesn't bother me in this. In fact, this is one of my favorite missions to play through just because of the great story and the experience of going through that story. So if you're a story fan and you don't have a problem with having limited gameplay, this is still a great mission for you to play. And what are we saying overall about this mission? I guess we should go right in on to that.
Well, there's another great story that lives up to the last episode with some cool new technical stuff, but not as much as exciting gameplay. It's ideal for those story lovers out there. And there's a little analogy I'd like to add to this as well.
Analogy? Whoa, we're getting official. Okay.
It's imagine power levels in your ship. You're trying to set up your ship and all that kind of stuff. Except this is just space, technical, and gameplay. If you increase one dips. In this case, the author has significantly upped story, but gameplay has gone right to the bottom. So, yeah, basically, and other authors experiment with that, and others suffer from power losses, or other people just have like EPS power or regulator or something, and their power is just ridiculously up there. It's a fantastic mission all around. This mission, like I said, it suffers a lot in gameplay, but it makes up for it a hell of a lot in story.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic story.
Thumbs
What it's
up
called
there.
first.
Overall,
Brilliant.
7.36, our 15th ranked mission overall. So it's a great one to still play. Definitely check it out. Be sure to check it out because next week, hopefully, we'll be reviewing part 3, the final installation of this amazingly written Foundry series. I'm already going to say the story of this is great. And, okay, a little bit, it's not really a spoiler, but part 3 does leave off for a future series or something like that. And I want that series made. So if you have made it, Captain PF Dennis, let us know because I need to know what happens next.
Please do.
Oh, it's I can't wait to talk about next week. I probably should. I don't think we'll be able to talk about why the ending's so great because it will be a story spoiler, but we'll find out. So tune in next week for that. We'll see you then. Oh, but first, I guess we have a Foundry discussion, incoming communication. We've got exploits. So a major discussion that's been going on, both forum-wise and game-wise, between Foundry authors and on other podcasts, has been the exploits of the Foundry, because, lo and behold, a bunch of Foundry authors celebrated when the console clickies died, and myself included. But again, of course, other people were like, oh, there's going to be a new form of exploit.
Yeah, you can't get deleted, you can't get fleet marks, that kind of stuff. It's like, wah,
oh,
basically.
Man. Well, so here's what happened. The reward system basically changed a while ago, of course, where you need your mission to be like 20 minutes. From what I've heard, there was a post by Zero. It's considered the amount of time it takes to complete a mission, so say 20 minutes or whatever, along with the plays. It needs a certain amount of plays before it's going to qualify for the rewards. That part has been kind of like poo-pooed upon because for some authors it's hard to get plays. Like for the mission we reviewed today, it does not have a lot of plays, and I looked at it and I was like, this is a really great quality mission, but its plays don't match up with the quality of the mission.
Yeah, the thing about that is it's an iffy subject trying to determine those people who are actually interested in determining what actually qualifies as a mission. It's extremely difficult to, because you don't know what the qualifications are. Because I mean, the mission we reviewed today has only got 57 players, and yet it qualifies because of the 3-part series and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, what qualifies here? Is it the amount of stuff in the mission? Is it the amount of players? What is it?
Yeah,
and it's
weird.
near impossible to determine that. So.
But the reward system changed then again. I don't know if we covered this on the show, but now you only have to play like one mission to get your reward instead of the 3. And it's still a pretty decent reward. Do you know what the reward is, Wee off the top of your head for the Foundry Daily? I know it's dilithium fleet marks and some XP.
Yeah, I think the dilithium's the same. It might have been lowered. I'm not sure.
I think it's 960.
960. It was 440 before.
Yeah.
It's 960, I think now. And the fleet marks, they put that in permanently after I think it was the fleet mark special like 4 months ago. They put that in permanent now, so you get plenty of fleet marks.
It's like 50. So it's a pretty good chunk.
Good for getting your projects up, yeah. And XP like that, yeah. There's no actual choosing reward anymore. It's not like, do you choose your currency or do you choose your item? It's just the currency this time. I don't think you get an item with it anymore.
No, but
so
and you can do this more frequently now. I believe there was like a 24-hour cooldown in the original one, so you could probably only do like 3 missions a day. Now I think it's like a half-hour cooldown, and
half-hour cooldown.
It counts down as you're playing through the mission. So if you play a half-hour mission, you'll be able to pick up another mission right when you're done, and then go right into.
This is in some people's eyes, this is probably the perfect thing to actually do your dilithium grinding for a day.
I like this way the rewards set up.
Those people who actually want to do it, you can just redo it half an hour and do an actual mission along the same time. Like we're doing a series, like for example, this one we're reviewing right now for every action. We could do all 3 parts and get a bunch of like 24,000 dilithium or something in one go. So, yeah.
Well, I'm quite happy too because like we just reviewed a Foundry series. I've authored tons of Foundry series. Foundry series are hard to get into to play just because you're devoting a lot of time, but I see them as easier stuff to get into now because of the great rewards. Because you'd be like, oh, I can just hit this one, turn in my mission, and get tons of rewards that way.
It's even better if like a person gets really into a Foundry series that's a really long one, for example, like 5 or 6 parts, and they really get into it, but they also remember to get the quickie. It's more like, it's not really a daily anymore. It's more like a repeatable. It's a repeatable now.
Yeah, that's what it's
called. So
called,
if they remember
actually
to do that all the time, every half an hour, they'll get a whole bunch of dilithium and fleet marks for the fleet and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really good idea to get into a kind of a series like that and actually replay this mission repeatable all the time.
Yeah, but of course, it's not all daisies and roses and butterflies and unicorns flying over the rainbow.
The inevitable return of the quickies in a different form. This time, potentially more. I don't know exactly what to say, but more destructive. More destructive.
They're definitely more destructive. Actually,
Yeah.
It makes me question how the review system's working to qualify for the rewards now are working, and basically how missions are being organized. Because I know we talked about it last week where new missions were hitting the top rated list, which was good. That was great to see new authors getting up there, except the problem is now the exploits have managed to work their way up to the top of the top rated list, which that was really hard in the beginning. We didn't see any exploit missions at all in the top rated list before this change. And do you want to read off a couple of these missions here, Rui? Because when we looked probably about an hour ago, we saw the top of the top rated list was completely contaminated with grind missions. So here, Rui, go ahead and read some of these off.
There's like a couple of the top, number 2 and 3. Number 2 is Battleship Royale Rumble, which is number 2. And the one after that is Quark the Farmer Fed, which is number 3. But then all back down to number 8, it's like Klingon Nebula Flax, which is like an accolade quickie mission again. But Murphy found the next 8 missions after that are all grinding missions. It's just no story ones. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the theme for today is for every action there is an equal opposite reaction in Newton's law of motion. So in this case, there's been a rather severe reaction to it, and a rather equal opposite reaction. Because of the lack of the quickies, they don't count anymore. We have actual missions now counting as quickies, and that's what people are going on. They're going on accolade missions that count as them and just replaying them all the time. There's no actual mission. Missions are suffering even worse than they were before. So if anything, attempting to fix that quickie didn't really make it any better at all. It just made it worse
now. Because the problem is now Foundry authors, they always worried about their missions being hidden below these quickies that your average lazy MMO player, which granted there's a lot of those when they play the game, they just want their reward as quickly and as easy as they can. Those missions are rising their way up to the top, pushing these missions that authors spend hours and hours of work on further down the list. Like when you look at the top rate list, stuff like Alamex made, which we know he spent months on, is being topped by these quick missions made in 10 minutes max. And that's what's kind of sad. And the Foundry was originally designed as a tool for Trekkies to tell off story, not an easy grind quick system, which is why these should be dealt with, in my opinion. I don't know if they're not exploits like the console clickies were, but these I don't think.
I'll put an analogy on it. I'm full of analogies today.
Oh man.
The old quickies effectively they're they announce themselves as quickies, don't they? They are there. You exactly know what they're going to do and what they're going to bring you. These are more like Romulans. These are disguised. They're cloaked everywhere. You don't know it's a quickie until you finished it so quickly. So
not all of them, but I know like for the farmer fed one we just read off here, that seemed like a story one to me.
Yeah, you're going to find these. You're going to find, all right, this looks like a genuine mission. You play it and it only lasts 5 minutes and it counts and it's a quickie mission. You're like, was that a quickie mission or was that an actual mission? So it's even worse than it was before because of that fact. So it's like, what would you rather face? The Borg knowing exactly what they're going to bring to you, or the Romulans not knowing if they have an entire cloak out there?
So what's exactly going on in these quickie missions? Well, from what I've heard, I haven't played one of these, and for good reason, because I don't want an exploit. I don't like them. I probably should just checked one out just for show stuff, but I've heard enough to know what they're kind of about. Basically, the major one we're seeing here, and it's kind of an ingenious way of doing it, is you'll go into a space map, and there'll be a bunch of alien battleships in there, and you'll blow them up to get the loot drops, which you can easily sell for tons of EC to add into your fleet marks and dilithium that you're already getting, which of course are the 3 currencies you really need for all these reputation Mr. Bucket grind systems. Plug for you there, podcast UGC, but anyway. You've got the battleships all down there, and of course battleships are kind of hard to take on. So hey, why don't we just throw the nebula static effect in there to drop their shields? That makes the battle shorter. But of course, there's going to be a lot of battleships on the map. So what's the best way to make sure you don't blow up? Let's put them on passive mode so they don't shoot back at us. So basically, it just turns into poke the battleships, wipe them as quickly as you can, turn the mission in, and repeat.
Rinse and repeat, yeah.
No story.
Some of the ones I've run into is just basically go into a map and shoot a battleship for the entire 10 minutes. Just shoot it 25 times and then you're done.
Yep.
Or shoot a few frigates for 25 kills and there you go. So it's like, ugh.
The other major one I've heard is a ground one, where basically all you have to do is place your boffs on the ground You can even walk away for this one, and basically they'll just spawn in mobs that they'll kill over and over and over again. Then you just come back, pick up the loot, the mission will be done, you turn it in, and you move on again. That's even more exploity because you don't even need to be around to do that, and probably even for the battleship one, you don't need to be around.
There's a potential flaw in that one because the boss can easily get destroyed by higher level groups. I mean, things like Herogen are actually pretty deadly when they're
But I
mentioned.
think they're using lower level mobbed. Probably they could even put it on
that's
passive
what they're
when
doing.
you think about it.
It's for those people actually doing the quickies. As they go, like, get more advanced, they're going to begin finding out what is the easiest groups to kill. Probably get Gorn or Nozzigans or Orions, that kind of stuff. Not things like Herogen. So it's as time develops, this will get worse. And right now, it's already worse than the quickies as it was originally.
So what needs to be done basically is report these missions because I believe a month or two ago, Mr. Daniel Stahl called out all of us Foundry authors for not reporting these. I'm pretty sure I know I reported them right off the bat when the Foundry was launched. I didn't see any of them pulled down. I know a ton of other authors, like, I reported them, never saw them pulled down. So Cryptic basically told us we need to do our job. So, hey, let's do it and see what happens. Report any of these missions. You can report these four that we just read off here. If you see any other exploit, because, again, there are 8 ones here already that we didn't mention. Go find those. If they're really bugging you and you don't want them there anymore, report them. And if Cryptic doesn't do anything, then that just says they don't care or they're just too busy. Because the only way these are going to get taken care of is basically by Cryptic getting involved now and pulling them down, which hopefully is what happens.
But that'll only get you so far. I mean, I hate to be a critic on that solution. It's a good solution, but it'll only get you so far. Because that's exactly the solution we tried on the quickies last year until they destroyed the whole XP thing. And in this scenario, there's no way to fix it, as far as I can tell. There's literally, it's even worse now. There's no way they can pull the XP. I mean, that was always a thing in the back of our minds with old quickies, but this one, I think the solution is to go back to the old quickies. It's the only way to do it. Because then at least people know it's the old quickies. I mean, granted, they'll be repeating them all the time, but at least they're not disguised as actual missions.
Or they'd have to either change the way missions are ranked right now so that these get pushed down. And a way I could see that happening is tags.
Whatever the way they do it, it's going to have to be better than the solution, because right now it's just... I hate to be a massive critic on the way Cryptic's done this, but it's just terrible.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
It's just terrible.
And I give it a thumbs down. I don't like it. So please, Cryptic, give it a look. I don't know. Zero, take a look at it. I don't know if Zero's the one working on this. But something obviously needs to be done because it's lowering the author quality of work in the Foundry. People aren't going to be taking it seriously, and authors aren't going to want to author missions when people who make 10-minute work missions are getting better spotlights up there. So it's something that needs to be looked at. It's a big deal in the Foundry this week. If something major happens that fixes this issue or maybe makes it worse, I don't know. We'll cover it on a future episode of Foundry Files. But that's about it for this week. So, hey, thanks for tuning into Unlucky Episode 13. I hope it's lucky enough that all these segments get in. We'll find out. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. I guess we'll see you next week, everybody. Wave bye, wee wee. Bye. Bye.